ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। So we'll continue from where we left yesterday. Inaction is not the absence of action. One who is Kritsna Karma Krit sees very clearly that there is no action whatsoever in action. Karmani akarma darshanam. And that there is action in inaction. Akarmani karma darshanam. Why? Because he is coming from the standpoint of understanding Atma. And that samsara is an ocean. And in order for a person who is an ajnani, for ajnani there is no samsara. Whereas for an ajnani, there is samsara. That is, every action leads to karma phala, which is either punya or papa, or sukha or dukkha. And he is a karta as well as a bhokta. So although every action, for every karta, there is atma that is required, atma is not karta. That is what a jnani understands. And therefore, for a jnani, samsara is only a notion, and he sees inaction in action and action in inaction. And inaction is not the absence of action. So therefore, one who is a kritsna karma krit, that one who has accomplished doing everything that is to be done, because he's coming from that state of purnatva, sees very clearly that there is no action whatsoever in action. Karmani akarma darshanam, and that there is action in inaction. Akarmani karma darshanam. In his understanding, inaction, akarma, the so-called absence of action, is converted into action because of the presence of the karta. The one who says, I perform this action is the same one who says, I do not perform this action. To say I do not perform this action does not mean there is no action, because this particular inactivity is dependent upon or is centered on the karta, the doer. So because the person who says, I do not do any activity, because of the I, because of the kartritva, this so-called inaction is converted into an action.
Can you
Yeah.
repeat what you said again?
Yeah. So this is with respect to a kritsna karma krit, right? That is one who is a jnani, one who is that buddhiman and yuktaha, sayuktaha, kritsna karma krit, sees very clearly that there is no action whatsoever in action. Karmani akarma darshanam. And that there is action in inaction. Akarmani karma darshanam. In his understanding, inaction, akarma, the so-called absence of action, is converted into action because of the presence of the karta. The one who says, I perform this action, is the same one who says, I do not perform this action. To say, I do not perform this action does not mean there is no action, because this particular inactivity is dependent upon or is centered on the karta, the doer. So it is basically, it is the karta who is saying, I perform this action, and also it's the karta who says, I do not perform this action. So from the standpoint of Atma, with reference to Atma, which is Purna, which is Satya, and this unqualified knowledge, Chit, and Ananda, infinite bliss, because there is no change whatsoever possible in Atma. So he sees inaction in action. There is no action whatsoever in action. At the same time, the so-called inaction that the person says he does not do, that is a normal person says, I do not do any activity, he actually sees karma. Why? Because of the kartritva. He is coming, jnani is coming from the standpoint of non-doership, akartritva. But those that say we are not acting, we are not doing any action, there is actually an action there. Why? Because of the karta. Kartritva is the notion that I am the doer, aham karta. Because from the standpoint of the jnani, there is no action and there is no inaction. For him, there is only actionlessness. From his standpoint, he is coming from the standpoint of akartritva. Whereas kartritva is the notion that I am the doer, aham karta. Because this notion is there, the person says, I do not perform this action now, which does not mean that he or she does not perform any action at all. While the person may not perform certain actions, he or she continues to perform some action or the other. No one can remain, even for a second, performing no action whatsoever, as we saw in the third chapter. Therefore, It is impossible for anyone to say, I am not doing any action. Even making such a statement is acting because speaking is an action. A person who says, I perform no action at all, I am keeping quiet, is performing the action of speaking. There is no such thing as inaction in the sense of a total absence of activity. When Krishna says that the wise person is able to see action in inaction, he means that the person does not see inaction as an absence of action. What the person is able to see in action is freedom from action, not the absence of action. In the absence of action, there is action. And even in that action, the wise person called Buddhiman is able to see a freedom from action. So this is the second important point. The first one was with reference to action and inaction. The second one here, the Buddhiman, does not see action or inaction literally. It is freedom from action. Because even when one says, I do not perform any action, when that person proclaims this, he is actually doing an action of speaking. And that I am not doing an action, that kartritva is there, and therefore that itself it amounts to an action. So it is not just just seeing action or inaction, but it is seeing freedom from action. Because no one can stay without doing any action even for a second. This is nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krit karyate hyavashah karma sarvah prakriti jair gunaihi. So no one can stay without doing any activity even for a second. So it is just by saying I am inaction is just absence of action is not true. That again is only a notion. So true action or inaction is actually freedom from action, freedom from kartritva, freedom from the doership. The buddhiman has the wisdom, the buddhi, that enables him or her to see inaction in action because the person sees the Atma as akarta. Thus, there is the recognition of the fact that the self is not an actor in any way whatsoever. The self does not perform any action, and in its presence, all activities take place. So it is from the standpoint of Atma. There is no action. There is inaction in action. Why? Because the Atma is seen as akarta. It's just like in a dream, right? In the dream, it is as though there is action happening. But is there any action actually happening? The moment one wakes up, you realize that it was only a dream. The whole dream is a notion. Similarly, when we extrapolate it, samsara is a notion. So there is no doership there at all. So once doership dies, samsara also dies. Just like how when we wake up, the dream disappears. Similarly, in the awake of the knowledge of the Atma, samsara disappears. And along with it, the doership. The original sin is ignorance. The problem here is that all actions are centered on the karta, the actor. Only when the karta is there, there is the possibility of action. Therefore, all actions emanate from the karta, which is not separate from aham, I, the atma. The problem comes because the person thinks that he or she is the karta. This thinking, this particular notion, is the only evil there is. If there is such a thing as original sin, it is only in thinking that oneself is the karta, because from it, because from this all problems arise. I am the karta is a notion, and it is this notion that binds a person to karma. Why? Because the one who is the enjoyer of the result of action is the one who performed the action. Karta eva bhokta bhavati. When I perform an action, a result accrues. And this result accrues to me, the karta alone. In this way, I am bound by the results of my actions and thus by the actions themselves. Even a person who makes money and distributes it to all others, leaving none for himself or herself, accrues the result of a good action. People rightly exalt such a person, which is a karma phala that belongs only to the person who distributed the money. But the person is still a karta to whom karma phala accrues, because of which he or she is also an enjoyer. Though he may be selfless in the sense he is whatever he has earned, he is given to others. But as long as he is ignorant of the true nature, he will accrue karma phala. So he accrues punya. And because he accrues punya, he also is a bhokta. He has to go through that. Samsara, the orbit of action and result. Karma and its results, karma phala, are the cause for samsara. They account for all of one's problems. The results of karma in the form of punya and papa, according to this particular model, account for one's incarnation also. We have seen that karma is born out of desire, kama, and is therefore nothing but an expression of desire in the form of likes and dislikes, ragas and dveshas. Although samsara is accounted for by karma phala itself is only possible because there is karma, which is in turn possible because there is kama, desire. And for whom is the kama? the karta. Therefore, karta is the cause for all the karmas and karma phalas. And because of ignorance, one takes oneself to be the karta. So the cycle continues. Why? Because number one, samsara is the result of action and result.
Actually, Ajnana.
Correct. Original sin is ajnana, no doubt. From that, there is this doership that I am the karta,
He is the Bhokta then.
and therefore he is also bhokta. And then he is a karta. Once he is a karta, there is also kama. Because of avidya, he is karta. And then from karta, there is this kama. From kama comes karma. And karma leads to karma phala, and therefore bhoktritva. So this kartritva, bhoktritva, the cycle continues. And this is the orbit of the samsara. Karta is the cause for all karmas and karma phalas. So if we knock out the karta, how do we knock it out? By knocking off avidya. And because of ignorance, one takes oneself to be the karta. The problem here is that if you are really a karta, you have no way of getting out of samsara. You are in its orbit, the orbit of action and its results, karma chakra. Because of karma phala, there is birth, janma. And because of birth, there is karma to perform. And if one is able to gain a human body or its equivalent, to perform karma. Then you perform new karmas and gather more karma phalas, thereby perpetuating the cycle. Because of karma, there is karma phala. Because of karma phala, there is janma. Because of janma, there is karma. And because of karma, there is karma phala. An orbit you will continue to be in as long as you take yourself to be the karta. There is no way of getting out of this wheel of samsara, this samsara chakra, unless you get out of the orbit of karma, karma phala, janma, karma. And how do you get out? The only way is to nullify the kartritva, doership. If the doership is real, you will not be able to nullify it because anything real cannot be nullified. We've seen that anything which is real exists, right? Take the example of the pot. Pot is made of clay. So you go on analyzing what is the pot clay made of. The pot, initially the pot is there. Once you break the pot, what is there? Clay is. Now you further analyze the clay. At clay is gone, what is there? Atoms and molecules is. When you tease it further and further and further, what remains is just the isness. So if it is real, kalatrayepi tishtati iti sat. That is the definition of sat. So if kartritva is real, it cannot be nullified. By the same reasoning, if doership can be nullified, it is not real. So the same logic you use, if it can be nullified, it means doership is not real. It is only a notion. It is only mithya. How to get out of the orbit of samsara? There is an argument that suggests that by performing, now comes the Purva Mimamsaka. There is this sparring, spiritual sparring is happening right now, is giving another perspective to how to get out of this samsara. So there is an argument that suggests that by performing only good karmas, a person will be liberated from samsara. I think most other religions think of this. You just do good karma and you'll be out. Because I was having a discussion with my Muslim colleagues yesterday about it. So happened we just got into this discussion of religion. And then they said, if you do good activities, you will go to heaven. That's it. For them, that is ultimate, nothing beyond. So for them, a newborn baby is sinless, does not, only from 10 years or so, they are capable of accruing sin. So from 10 years onwards, apparently, this karma phala will start having an effect. So, but whereas in Advaita, Sanatana Dharma, we are born with prarabdha karma. So you already have a bundle of punya and papa which is directing your life, which is already directed your birth, to which parents we are born, where we are born. Are we born here in a place of abundance, or are we born in a place where there is starvation? All that is already predetermined by the prarabdha that we are born with.
And what is their explanation about a small kid having problems? Uh, do,
That there is no explanation.
yes, there is no explanation.
There's
And
no explanation.
what about the bad karmas? What they do? Where do they? That is
That
Jahannam.
is what. So the
Uh,
Purva Mimamsaka and most of the other religions, including the Dvaitins, all of them, they are all under the they come with the understanding that you just do good, you'll be liberated. That's it. It's all about doing good. Whereas it is only Advaita that says
They
you,
don't believe in Punarjanma also, means Janma.
I
Next
suppose,
lifetime.
yeah, some of them might believe, but um, getting another birth, the cycle of samsara, birth and rebirth, cycle of rebirth is actually is fundamental to our understanding of Vedanta. Because then how
Means
will you account for?
means they will not believe in the in this cycle of Janma and Mrityu. Means
Yeah,
next Janma.
correct. So where will all the papa karma that you have done, for example, where will that go? Isn't it? So they say that you just do good karma, you'll be liberated. But who's going to account for the not so good karma that one has done? So we'll see this. So there is an argument that suggests that by performing only good karmas, a person will be liberated from samsara. This cannot be true. To perform only good karmas means that all the actions done by a person have to be good. There would be no wrong actions at all. And we have seen earlier, I think in the earlier verses, even breathing, you can kill inadvertently, you kill so many bacteria, so many germs get killed just by the act of breathing, just by the act of walking. How many organisms are we killing? Microscopic organisms, right? So, if all your actions have to be good, good karmas, you'll be liberated. That is not true because it's not possible for one to do only good. There would be no wrong actions at all. This is not possible at all, as we shall see later. A person doing only good actions will gain only punya. But gaining any amount of punya will not release the person from this cycle. Punya being karma phala, the person with a lot of punya will have a lot of births and maybe a lot of what we call comforts. And the tendency of a person who has more and more comforts in the form of money and power, for example, is eventually towards wrong actions. So you see the cycle, how it goes? Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So when one has a lot of money, comfort, it seems as though he's enjoying, but that itself will corrupt him. So the more money a person gathers, the more power he or she may have, and power tends to corrupt the person who has it. And if by having gathered so much punya, a person could conceivably gain absolute power, then the person may become absolutely corrupt. This absolute corruption will then result in the accrual of papa, for which more births are gained. Just give me a second, 1 second. So, furthermore, it is impossible for a person to perform only good actions, punya karma. No one can avoid doing papa karma at some time or the other. All it takes is one unconscious swatting of a mosquito. Unknowingly, you are destroying millions of bacteria every day. Nor are all the varieties of papa karma known to you. Some are unknown also. Therefore, you cannot avoid doing papa karma altogether. Even if you could do nothing but punya karma, you would not get out of the orbit of samsara. Karma itself keeps the samsara going. Only when the karta is not there will there be the absence of karma for you. And if the karta is a reality, karma will definitely be there. But the karta is not absolutely real. It is only a superimposition upon the atma, which is absolutely real. This means that while the karta, the doer, is aham, I, atma, is not the doer. This being so, kartritva, doership, becomes mithya, something that has no independent existence because it depends upon I, whereas I, the Atma, does not depend on doership. It is Satya. So if karta is real, karma will be real. Samsara will be real, and you'll continue in this cycle. But we understand that samsara is an ocean. Why? Because the karta is actually, it's a superimposition. Karta is only a superimposition upon the Atma. So once the superimposition is cleared off, like we have the superimposition of the snake on the rope, when there is light, you actually see that it is only a rope and not a snake. Similarly, with the light of knowledge, once we realize that this I is akarta, is Atma, and not the karta, in that light of realization, the kartritva disappears. And along with it disappears bhoktritva. And therefore, along with it disappears all the karma. So this cycle of samsara is broken. So the karma phala, janma, karma, that cycle gets destroyed. So while the karta, the doer is aham, I, Atma is not the doer. If you extrapolate a dream also, see, the dreamer thinks he is the dreamer is one who creates the dream, right? And all the whoever the characters, and to a large extent in the dream, he or she goes through that experience, so to say, of pain, pleasure, everything that goes on in the dream. And that is why people have nightmares even. But when they suddenly wake up, so while in the dream, it appears that everything is real. That it is only you in the form of all the characters in the dream. But the moment you wake up, what is happening? Where is the dreamer merging into? The dreamer merges with the waker. And the waker is all knowledge, saying, oh, I am not the dreamer. I am me. So all that dream, where did it vanish? So that whole dream was just a superimposition upon the waker. Just like how kartritva is a superimposition upon the Atma. So the moment you realize, and therefore, what converts the dreamer into the waker? It is knowledge. The moment he wakes up, and that awareness, that knowledge comes in, that, hey, listen, I am not the dream. I am not the dreamer. I am who I am. So likewise, when we extrapolate this realization from dreamer to waker to anatma and atma, so I am not the karta, I am atma. Then we see this whole thing as nothing but a huge big dream. And it is only notionally, acting, enacting, and all of that is only a notion, only mithya. It is as though real. We cannot call it unreal, correct? It is as though real. Because as long as we are in this body identification, any pain in the body, we understand. We go through the pain. So there is some reality to it, so-called reality. But that reality is only, it's not absolute. It is as though real. Anybody wants to share? So we'll see now the definition of Mithya and Satya. Anything that does not exist on its own, anything that depends for its existence upon something else, anything that draws flesh and blood from something else for it to exist is called Mithya. That which does not depend upon anything else in order to exist is Satya. Very beautifully put, right? Anything which depends upon anything else for its existence is Mithya. Anything that does not depend on anything else, anything which is Svata Siddha, is self-evident and self-existing, is Satya. Now, in the dream analogy, the dream is dependent upon the dreamer, and the dreamer is dependent upon the waker. It's only the waker that becomes the dreamer, isn't it? So the dreamer is dependent upon the waker. Similarly, here, the world is dependent upon Atma, Brahman. In terms of reality, then, a shirt becomes mithya and the cloth it is made of becomes satya. The cloth itself becomes mithya and the yarn that makes up the cloth becomes satya. The yarn becomes mithya and its fibers become satya. The fibers become mithya and the particles that make up the fibers become satya. The particles become mithya and the concept becomes satya. The concept becomes mithya and Atma becomes satya. At this point, a question may arise. If Atma becomes mithya, this question is not valid because this entire inquiry is possible only because there is an Atma, which is Satya, that which is not negatable. That is cannot be negatable. And that Satya, what is Atma. That is why it is so important to live in the present moment. That isness is there in the present. Is present, right? It is not future, nor is it past. It is not was or will be. What is. So the more and more we are in the is, we are in the now, the more and more we are rooted in that reality of the truth. The moment you skip one little this side or that side, you're getting engulfed by Maya, by Mithya. See, what was, can you get back what was? It's a dream, it is gone. And what will be is also a notion. You never know what will be. But what is reality, the truth, right now. And like Gurudev says, this now, this is not just momentary, it is not fleeting. It has a depth of its own. So you cannot negate Atma, because why? This whole thing itself, who is the one asking? This is where the Buddhism says Atma is empty, Atma is Shunya. But who is saying Atma is Shunya?
I have a question. In
Yeah.
space, Panchamahabhutas, other four exist. So
Correct.
does that four depends on the space? Space is like Satya. And
Yeah, but space
there is
itself is not self-existent. No? Space itself depends upon something else. And what is that something? Space, no doubt, is the closest to Atma in the form of pervasiveness, all
So it
pervading.
also comes in Maya then?
Correct. It comes, no?
Hmm.
That's what we learned.
Correct.
Brahmashraya Maya,
Hmm.
Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunatmika Maya Asti. Atah Akashas Sambhutah. Akashat Vayu. Vayor Agnihi. Agnerapah. Adbhyav Prithivi.
I was thinking like that also in the in previous paragraphs we read. No, everything actions is happening in space, like rains, that agni
Correct.
and everything. But
Correct.
space is untouched. So there is action, but inaction. Action
Correct.
is happening in space, but that space remain like nothing.
Untouched.
That
Very right.
untouched. There is no
Very right.
nothing is happening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That is why that space is closest to Atma. For anyone to understand, that is closest. And what comes out of space? What is the sense organ that comes out of space? Sound comes out of space, right? Sound. So that is why Shabda Pramana. That is why Shabda is the Pramana that leads us to the knowledge of Atman.
And is that the last element to leave when we leave the body?
Um,
First the touch goes, and then that's why they keep
correct.
chanting.
You're right. So that would be probably the last one to go. Taste and smell and all of that. That is why they feed every day. Taste is also there for some time. Then finally the sound. So it's beautiful, this evolution, right? But where we have to have Shraddha, people can question, who said there is Maya? What is Maya? I'm not going to believe. You are just saying there is Maya, but what if there is no Maya? For me, samsara is real. For me, everything what I see, hear, feel, I can feel my body, everything is real for me. How are you saying it is mithya? Right? But that is where the element of Shraddha comes in. Guru Vedanta Vakyeshu Vishwasaha Shraddha. So the Vedanta is saying, and the Shastra is saying, Guru is saying, hey, listen, this is how the universe is created. Anything that changes is not real. And that is in our experience, day-to-day experience, right? Is the pot real? The pot has its existence. There is an akasha within the gata. The gatakasha, once the pot breaks, what happens? It merges with the rest of the akasha. So is the pot real? So by the definition itself, by redefining, not redefining, by defining satya, what is satya? Kalatraye tishtati iti sat. So therefore, anything that has a birth has death. So the universe has a birth and therefore it also has a death. It dissolves. There is creation, sustenance, and there is srishti, sthiti, and laya. And this continually happens, whether we acknowledge it or not. So here the Bauddhas say the Atma is Shunya. But Shankara comes in and says, who is it that says Atma is Shunya? That you are. And that is not negatable. That is Satya. The I that says Atma is Shunya, that I you are. So this question is not valid. What is that question? At this point, a question may arise. If Atma becomes Mithya, so you're analyzing how a shirt is Mithya with respect to the cloth, how cloth is Mithya with respect to the yarn. Yarn is Mithya with respect to fibers. Fibers Mithya with respect to the particles. Particles, the concept. Concept becomes Satya. Concept also becomes Mithya with respect to Atma. So this concept here is what? Maya. Maya is a concept, right? Maya is the concept that Vedanta brings in to explain the whole creation, isn't it? So the concept becomes Mithya. What remains is Atma. At this point, a question may arise. If Atma becomes Mithya, then who is it that actually is bringing out all of this? There is someone, right? That unchanging reality. There has to be some reference. So that reference you are. This question is not valid because this entire inquiry is possible only because there is an Atma, which is Satya, that which is not negatable. I am neither the doer nor the enjoyer. Consciousness that is self-evident, which does not need to be revealed by anything else, is Atma, the self. The self alone is self-evident, and everything else is evident to the self. Atma, that is not the Karta. The self alone is self-evident, and everything else is evident to the self. Atma, that is not the Karta. The Karta is something that comes and goes. See, in deep sleep, where is the Karta? Although there is that tinge of Kartritva, that is why you say, oh, I had a good sleep. But you don't have the waker, you don't have the dreamer in deep sleep. They have gone. For instance, there is no Kartritva, no doership in deep sleep. Since I am always there, self-evident, if I am the Karta should not come and go. I should always be the Karta. And if I am an enjoyer, Bhokta, I should always be Bhokta. But this is not so. Sometimes I am Karta and sometimes I am Bhokta. This means that I am neither Karta nor Bhokta. Well, here I have a little doubt because Bhoktritva is actually enjoying also as an action. So there is this Kartritva there. So I know I had this doubt even last time. That doubt is not resolved. But then in deep sleep, there is no Kartritva. One fact is that it is not constant. See, there is seemingly a constant element because of Atma, because of I, the action, the Atma. There is an eternity to it. That is why we all feel that we will live eternally. Only when someone close to us passes on, dies, reality hits in our face, saying, oh, even I will reach this place, this state once, one day. Till then, we think we are living eternally, which is actually true because there is that element of eternity in each one of us. The only thing is we superimpose the limited anatma onto this unlimited atma, on this eternal atma. Karta appears when the mind, antakarana, is there. To worship Kartritva means the status of being the subject with reference to any type of activity, whether it is mental activity like perception, inference, and thinking, or physical activity. For any type of activity, a subject is always necessary. And this subject is called the ego or ahankara or karta. The word ego must be understood well because there are a number of problems associated with its general use. So I will read this para again. Karta appears when the mind, antakarana, is there. In deep sleep, there is no karta. There is only that awareness, that prajna is there. Atma in the deep sleep state is called what? Prajna, right? In the swapnavastha, it is called something else. In the wake, in jagradavastha, it is different. Taijasa. One is Taijasa, one is Prajna. Just give me a second. So the same Atma in the wakeful state is called, can someone remember what it's called? Taijasa, Prajna, and what it's called in. We should have this Tattva Bodh text next to us. Just give me a second. I will just check with Tattva Bodh. Oh, we have only 2 minutes left. 1 second. Tattva Bodh.
Is it Vishwa?
Yeah, thank you. Vishwa. Correct. Vishwa, Taijasa, and
Except.
Prajna. Correct. So in Panchakoshas, not in the Panchakoshas, it is in the see, Sukshma Sharirabhimani. Let me just share this one. I know today we will stop with this Tattva Bodh part. So Swapnavastha Ketchit, Avastatrayam, right? Avastatrayam kim Jagrat Swapna Sushuptyavastaha. Jagrad अवस्था का श्रोत्रादि ज्ञानेन्द्रियैः शब्दादि विषयैश्च ज्ञायते इति यत् सा जाग्रद अवस्था. So that condition in which one is able to comprehend sense objects like sound through etc. through sense organs like eyes and ears. Then sthula sharirabhimani atma vishva iti uchate. So sthula sharirabhimani. So you identify yourself with the sthula sharira in the wakeful state, right? That is why you identify with the physical body, mind, equipment. So the self identified with the physical body is called Vishwa. Then Swapnavastha keti chet Jagradavasthayam yat drishtam yat shritam tad janita vasanaya nidra samaye yaha prapanchaha pratiyate sa Swapnavastha. If asked what is the Swapna state, we say it is a universe that appears to exist during sleep. It originates from the impressions of the objects that were seen or heard while one was in the waking condition. See, it is a universe that appears. It's another universe that we create during Swapna. Sukshma Sharirabhimani Atma Taijasa iti uchyate. The self identified with the subtle body is called Taijasa. Ataha Sushuptyavastha ka aham kimapi na janami sukhena maya nidra anubhuyata iti Sushuptyavastha. And what is the Sushupti state? Sleep state is the experience which one refers to by the statements, I did not know anything and I experienced blissful sleep. Karana Sharirabhimani Atma Prajna iti uchyate. The self-identified with the causal body is called prajna. And Atma is what? Atma is avasthatraya sakshi. He is the witness to all these three states. So we'll stop here. I think we deviated a bit because we wanted to check what was. Yeah. So we'll go back to our Gita tomorrow. So basically, Atma is not the doer. And the cycle of samsara drops once this realization of Atma, the true nature, dawns. And in order to do anything, there is that element required. And we're talking about the ego now. Ahankara is required even for thinking, perceiving. The I, the small I, the ahankara is involved. And then we'll see tomorrow about the ahankara. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.